In this video, I'm going to show you how to recreate or how to create those big EDM chord lead sound. But I'm going to do it in a slightly different way compared to what's around on YouTube and on the Sonic Academy classes. Because usually what they do is showing you the final the final sound and then they recreate it. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to try and literally just go free on designing the sound in Serum. And the reason I do this, it's because I want to show you how easy it is to come up with ideas as you just tweak the knobs in Serum. So I have a sound in mind. I know exactly what I want, and I kind of know how to achieve it, obviously. But I want to show you the kind of process that goes inside my head as I create the sound. So maybe I actually come up with something super cool without even planning it, and I think it can be a fun and good experiment. So these are the chords. Nothing crazy, pretty EDM standard. And so obviously we want this lead to be a supersaw, because that's where that sound usually come from. And usually those supersaws are like super detuned, at least like 8 or 9. And let's put the detune over here and let's hear what happens now. The sound is already much more similar to what we want to achieve. And now the first thing I hear is that the notes are a little bit too stabby. So what I can do is increase the release so that the notes sound a little bit more glued together. That's much better. Another thing that I want is to have the same supersaw sound to play an octave higher, because the sound right now, it's really kind of mid frequencies, and I want some sparkle, some higher notes. So I'm gonna turn on oscillator B, and what I can do is simply copy oscillator A to oscillator B, and I can go up by an octave. That's pretty good. One thing we can do to differentiate the two is change the detune values in our Serum. So I can make the oscillator B slightly more detuned. And that's starting to sound exactly like I want. Now, if you remember in the effects part, what I told you is that there is an effect that is pretty good at recreating, at giving you that feel, that exact sound of those big giant EDM leads, and it's the compressor set to multiband. So let's open the compressor and let's put multiband, and now let's hear how it sounds. That basically sounds like a final product already. So it got a little bit quieter. So let's push up the gain a little bit. I'm liking it. What I'm going to try and do is maybe add a little bit of hyper or dimension. I just kind of need to want the lead to move a little bit. So I might add this one or the chorus. So let's try how this one works. This is definitely too phasery. I don't like that. Let's try the dimension. Maybe just a tiny bit. I'm not 100% sold on that, so I'm gonna turn it off for now. Let's try the chorus. And the way I usually make the chorus is that obviously, like I said before, I'm gonna turn all the way up the low pass filter, and I'm gonna put the mix at 100% so I can hear what the chorus does. And once I'm happy with the chorus setting, I will bring the mix down. This might actually work. I don't mind it like this, so yes, I might actually keep this. Now let's see what we can do modulation wise. We can obviously turn on the filter. I'm gonna put a 24 pole filter, and I'm gonna assign envelope to it, and let's hear how it sounds. All right, we need to add a little bit of release to the filter as well, because here we have some release and otherwise it gets cut out. I don't mind it. Let's try bring in a sub oscillator with a saw wave, and let's hear how it sounds. Probably we have to put it an octave lower. I actually like it a lot. Now we can give a little bit of space, and let's put some reverb. Totally cool. Maybe some delay as well, and here's the perfect example of what I was saying before about the position of your effects. Now the delay is before my compressor, and the compressor is doing some pretty heavy job. So if I am to use the delay before the compressor, what the compressor is going to do is that it's going to compress my lead plus the delay, and that's going to result into a little bit of a messy thing. And that's why I'm going to move the delay after the compressor, and I'm going to use ping pong, and maybe I'm going to use 1/8 of a note. Let's try 1/8 and 1/16. This is a little filter so we can cut out the low frequencies a little bit. That's pretty cool. So I'm thinking here, in this part where the long note is, that we should have the classic pitch down effect. Now there's two ways we can do that. Obviously we can do it with the pitch, and we do that by controlling here how many semitones we want the pitch to change our sound. So right now, if we go to the minus position, we're going to go down 12 semitones, so an octave. And if we go up, we're going to go up 2 semitones. So let's try. Oh, let me bypass the filter for a second. While if we go down, since we set 12, okay, right now we only care about going down, but for the sake of that, let's put it to 12 as well, in case later on we decide to go up. So there is this thing that we can do, and in Logic, we click this button over here, and over here we set pitch bend, and let's close Serum for a little. So we set our pitch automation to go down at this exact point. Now, you have to be really precise because otherwise it doesn't bounce the correct way. That's 1. And that's 2. This is one way that you can do it. Or you can do it with the LFO. And remember when I was talking about the LFO, and I was telling you that you could set the LFO to be an envelope, and one of the reasons to why you might want to do that is that the envelope can be, in this case, synced to the tempo of your song. So in this case, what we can do is, let's pretend for a second that this is our long note, and we can tell Serum that until here, Serum is going to play the right tone that we're playing, the right pitch. But at this point, in these exact part of the grid in Logic, Serum is going to pitch down the whole thing. So let's try and do this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this in the middle, because otherwise it's going to change the semitone thing, but that's how Serum works. And so the first thing I notice here is that now we have a sub oscillator involved, and this means that if we want to do that, we can't really do it with the coarse pit. So we open the modulation matrix and we go to LFO 1, and we're going to control global and master tune. So once we're at that, like I said before, we set it to, I think, 19 semitones. And let's put it to bipolar in this case. That's not really quite what we're looking for. And obviously, because I didn't set the right tempo yet, because the right tempo should be a bar. This is once again not quite what we're looking for. So what's going on here? Let's look at the trigger mode, and right now we are off. So Serum is not caring about what note we are playing, and is not actually syncing the starting point to the note. So it just looks at the grid in Logic, and that's all it cares to use the LFO. We don't want that right now. We want to be able to trigger this this LFO, because we only want this to happen in this area. So so you can see here that all the notes are really short, and that's not gonna mess with our LFO, because probably the length of the note right now is just this long. It will get to this point in the LFO. While if we have a note that is this long, which is probably a bar, or yeah, it should be a bar, this is gonna be the length of this part of the LFO. And the second part, the second half of this note is going to be this drop down here. So now that we set it to trigger, the LFO is going to start every time that we play the single notes. And since this one is longer, it's going to do the whole cycle of the LFO. So now let's try again. And yes, another thing is that I messed up, and it's not a bar, it's half a bar, because a bar is actually 4 of this. So now it's gonna work. And that's perfect. What are the benefits of having this kind of setup? First of all, it's really hard to have in this sort of music notes that are this long. And usually when they are this long, they're usually pitched down. So we can have this exact setting that we can use pretty much on everything that we are doing when we want this sort of effect. And that's pretty handy because we don't have to mess around with the pitch bend. So we can just play a melody. And that's just, gonna work perfectly. Another thing that I just noticed is that as we play a longer note, the oscillator, the LFO, sorry, is bouncing back. And we don't want that. We only want it to do this pitch down once. And so the trigger is not the right thing. I mean, it works perfectly the way is doing thing, but it's looping, and we don't want that. So right now, if we set it to envelope, so what does an envelope do? It does a certain operation every time we are hitting the note. So this is going to reset the LFO every time, but as we do this whole operation, once we get to this point, it's just going to stay here and it's not going to bounce and loop back. So this is the perfect setting for this sort of stuff. Now, there's a couple of more things that we can do to make this sound even cooler. And I'm thinking about a third envelope that's modulating the coarse pitch, and it's doing it in a way that I showed before, and it's just giving that cliquiness sound that I was explaining in the envelope part. But I'm actually going to do it in the higher tone oscillator. So let's try. The setting should be something like this, really quick drop down. And let's mute all the other oscillators as we do this, so we can really focus on that and hear what happens. Sounds good. It might go a little bit too high in pitch, so let's bypass it for a second, and now let's try put it in oscillator A. yeah, I actually like it better in oscillator A. So I'm gonna keep it there, and I like the settings. So yeah, I'm not gonna touch that for now. And we can also figure something out with the macro control. So let's play the sound and let's think about what we can do. So what I'm thinking is we could do some sort of modulation, some macro modulation, where when the filter is completely closed, maybe we only hear the higher part of our oscillators, so we can hear the higher oscillators, and maybe the envelope can be a little bit different. So let's try and assign the modulation, the macro control, to the filter first. And another thing that I actually forgot to mention when I was talking about the macro control is that it doesn't matter that you're modulating something with an envelope or with an LFO or anything else. You can also assign the macro to the same thing that you're modulating. Obviously, you can do the same thing with all the modulation, so you can have more modulation assigned to just a single parameters. But what's the macro also handy with is that it basically allows you to open, for example, in this case, to open the filter without having to actually go and opening the filter, and the envelope is still going to react to the whole filter opening up. So let's play, and let's so I can show you what I actually mean. So you can hear that as I open the filter, the modulation is still actually closing it as much as it can, because obviously now I'm opening the filter. So the minimum point over here is changing as I'm increasing the macro control. Okay, so what I was saying is that we can have the level of the oscillator A completely muted or just a little quiet as the filter is down. So we can do this, and this means that as we increase the macro control, we can go and increase the volume of our oscillator A as well. But that's too much, because it should be like around this area and something like this. Also, what we can do is to have a really long release as the filter is closed, and then as we open it, we make the release a little shorter. That's because there is a stage as the filter is opening that's kind of, I can feel a little bit too much space between the notes still, because the cutoff is cutting a little bit too much of the release, and that's not that good. I don't like that. So by doing this, we can balance that that space, or the fact that the cutoff is taking away a little bit of the release. So let's try and hear how that sounds. Cool. I like most of it. The only thing that I kind of forgot is that at this point, if we are lowering the volume of oscillator A, we might want to do the same with the sub oscillator, because the difference in frequencies between the sub oscillator and the oscillator B are a little bit too is a little bit too noticeable. So it feels like there's a huge gap between the lower frequencies and the highest frequencies, because obviously we got rid of all the middle frequencies that are given by this one. So it feels like there's a little bit too much of a gap. So we might just want to have the high frequencies, and then we bring in everything as we increase the macro control. So let's take the level here all the way down and let's set the maximum amount of volume to, I think it was this position. Now let's play it again, and here, let's hear if it's a little bit more balanced. Yes, I think this is definitely a good result. We might just want to go and EQ things a little bit. I would just probably make the sound a little bit more sparkly. Let's try. Yes, I think this is definitely the perfect type of setup. Now, another thing that I have to be honest about is that I wouldn't normally use delay and reverb straight from Serum. I was saying already that I'm not the biggest fan of the reverb, and the delay here is pretty cool, but yeah, the reverb in Serum is not my favorite. But also the other thing that the other reason as to why I wouldn't use it is that I might want to, I mean, this sound is pretty good on its own already, but with other sound, I might actually want to process them, or, you know, put some more EQ, put some more compression. And like I was saying before, if you have delay and reverb in the way, sometimes it kind of makes it harder to process the sound properly, because obviously you're processing more signal than the original signal. So yeah, normally I would turn these two off, but in this case, I just want to show you how easy it is and how quick it is to get a super like legit result, because this is definitely a synth sound that could be used in any EDM track. Obviously, maybe we might want to put a little bit of extra layering with another either Serum or Silent or whatever, but this sound is pretty much ready to be used just as it is. So yeah, we don't really need to add anything else in the channel strip. It's just ready to go. So yes, I think this sounds actually pretty cool, and it's definitely on spot to what we were trying to do. So yeah, now we're gonna look at the next example, and it's gonna be the bass.